This video is brought to you by my two books, Practical Music Theory for the Rock Guitarist and The Blues Guitar Bible. Want to learn about modes, harmony, scales, chord substitution and keys? Or maybe you're interested in supercharging your blues guitar rhythm and lead chops. Whatever you're interested in, I guarantee you will be hitting the fast lane to progress with either of these works. Both feature video demonstrations and tutorials, loads of tabs and jam tracks to play along with, and I promise you, everything is explained in crystal clear plain English. Check out the links in the description for more details. Hello chaps, welcome once again to John Robson Guitar Tuition. As always, I do hope you're well. Now, I started teaching guitar back in the early 1990s, just really as a stopgap between proper jobs, and here I am all those years later, still having a stopgap between proper jobs. During that period, there was a bit of a musical revolution, I think it's fair to say, going on. All of the spandex, poodle perm, pointy headstock, glam metal, hair metal stuff of the 80s suddenly, like pretty much overnight, just went boom and disappeared up its own orifice in a whiff of smoke, and all of the Seattle grunge boys came along and basically hit the reset button and took everything back to basics again. I was aware of this. Obviously, I was a guitar teacher, and I was, I was teaching guitar solos. I'd lost count of how many people I taught the guitar solo from Smells Like Teen Spirit to, for example. But it wasn't what I was listening to at the time. I was, the early 1990s. Here's my 5 most listened to albums of that period. This one, still listen to this extensively today. This one, which fair enough came out in the late 80s, and I bought it on cassette, but I just got a CD player in 1990, so I replaced my cassette version with a CD version. This one, fantastic album by Pat Benatar. Doing kind of getting on the sort of blues bandwagon that was sort of happening at the time. Another great album from that period there was John Lee Hooker's The Healer, which is basically John Lee Hooker and a bunch of his celebrity mates, Carlos Santana and Bonnie Raitt, to name just a couple. Got together and made an album. That's a really good album, well worth checking out. Van Morrison turns in a good performance on there as well. And this was in regular rotation for me as well. Joe Satriani, before he adopted the same hairstyle as I now sport. That's the kind of stuff I was listening to in the early 90s. And I was aware, for instance, of a band called Pearl Jam, but they were just part of that grunge kind of thing that was, I don't mind it, but it's not where I'm at musically. But it's interesting how a few decades pass and you get a different perspective. I've been listening to them quite a lot lately, and I thought I'd put one of their solos under the microscope, so here it is. That is the solo from probably one of their biggest and most recognisable songs alive, and I just think it's such an energetic, solo. It may not be doing much in terms of technique and kind of virtuosity, but it's absolutely full of attitude and rock swagger, I think. Much like the Clash, in the late 70s, we tended to think of the Clash as just being part of that whole kind of Sex Pistols driven punk movement. But you listen to old Clash songs now, and they're just a great classic rock band. And that's largely how I'm starting to see Pearl Jam. So, watch this space. There may just be one or two more tracks or solos of theirs featuring on this channel. Anyway, I'm waffling a bit, so let's get on to the next part of the video, which is me kind of having a breakdown of what's going on that solo.
Solo explanation.
Okay, so starting as always by taking a look at the chord sequence we're playing over, which has got an interesting little twist in it, which I'll tell you all about. Basically, we've got an E chord, going to a G chord, going to a D chord, going to an A chord, like this. And basically going round that 4 times. Now, let's imagine for a moment that E chord was an E minor. We would have E minor, G, D and A, which is essentially Run to You by Bryan Adams, etc. Okay, now that Bryan Adams chord sequence, as I say, with that E minor chord in there, is in the E Dorian mode, essentially taking the chords from the key of D major and refocusing them on the E minor chord that's in that key. So you can look at it as sort of being a little bit kind of adjacent to the E Dorian mode, or chords from the key of D major focusing on the E minor. But we don't have an E minor chord, we have an E major chord. And what's happening is that basically the closest mode to an E Dorian that also contains an E major chord rather than the E minor is E mixolydian, or the key of A major, with the focus on the E chord. So what we're getting is basically E mixolydian into E Dorian. It's kind of going backwards and forwards between those two modes. I've done a series of videos on explaining the modes, so I'll possibly put a link to those in the description if you want more clarification on that, or you can buy my Practical Music Theory for the Rock Guitarist publication, which is also linked in the description. Anyway, that's probably the most complex bit of what's going on here. I'm not suggesting for a moment that the guys in Pearl Jam were thinking, I know, let's write a song that moves between the E Dorian mode and the E mixolydian mode. Probably, I would say that's not what happened, but they just strung some chords together that sounded good, and that happens to be the way that a textbook would describe it. And if you're interested in the sort of workings of it, the inner architecture, then that's essentially what's going on. This whole thing about did they know music theory? Well, yeah, I would say they did. They probably just didn't know the textbook terms for what they were doing. Doesn't mean they didn't understand what they were doing in some way, shape or form. Anyway, let's take a look at the lead part now, and I can sum this up in one, well, is it 2 or 3 words? E minor pentatonic. Okay, that's all that's happening. Essentially, if we take a look at the sort of pentatonic run that many of us use a lot of the time. Oh, where's my volume gone? There it is. That with a little bit of this sort of portion of it. Fairly meat and potato sort of stuff. It's so widely used because it works so well. And we start with this little lick here. Straight ahead pentatonic, E minor pentatonic. I'm probably going to be saying that a lot throughout this little explanation. And then more of a similar kind of thing. Oops, not that. That instead. that there. Again, just all sort of pattern 1 minor pentatonic stuff up the 12th fret. And then we do this little walk down. Okay, notice we've got that flat 5 blue note in there. There. And then we're back up to this bendy stuff here again. And then almost a little country kind of lick there. Like that. Play that on a Telecaster with a clean tone over a G major chord, and you'd have, you know, a sort of lonesome prairie kind of sounding lick. Then after that, we come down, we bounce down to the open position here. And a little, that extension there, if you're thinking in terms of pentatonic positions, position 1, and the top end of position 2. Like that. So we have this long bend here, which he holds for thick end of a bar, basically. And then, like that, just kind of finishing off at the top end of pattern 2. I'll play that that second part of it just a little bit more slowly, so you get. And possibly the trickiest part of this is, you know, playing that bend at the 5th fret there. A lot of people find sort of bending on the top E string down this end of the neck can be somewhat trying, but it's only just a momentary bend. Like that, you know, you're not kind of holding it and sustaining it or anything, so it should be okay. But there you go. That's what's going on in the solo from Alive by Pearl Jam. Now you know what to do. Go away and have some fun with it. And as always, you'll find a full tab for the solo in both Guitar Pro and PDF formats, along with a clip of me playing it. That explanation you've just seen there, and the jam track to play along with yourself, that's all up on my Patreon page. There's the address, link in the description, as I'm sure you know by now. $3 or £3-ish, depending on the exchange rate per month, gets you access to all of these additional resources that go along with these YouTube videos. And of course, a massive heartfelt thank you to everyone who supports me in that, or any of the other ways, all of which are down there in the description. And that is pretty much it for today, folks. Hope you've enjoyed the video and found it useful and informative and perhaps even entertaining. And if that's the case, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell if you haven't already done so. And why not drop me a like as well while you're at it. And don't forget the live stream every Friday, 5 PM UK time. You know what we do there. We drink beer and we talk about stuff. Quite often it's guitars and music related, but quite often it isn't as well. It's just beer and a chinwag on a Friday. What's not to like about that? I'd love to see you there if you can make it. But for now, I'll bid you all a good day and say thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your time. Look after yourselves, folks. Stay well, stay safe, and above all, stay sane. Bye for now.